Cruize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank each of the witnesses for being here today. Each of you put your lives on the line to keep us safe, and I view a very important part of my job as having your backs. It's tough right now to be a cop. I try to make a point with every police officer I see in Texas and across the country to thank every officer. The discussion Senator Cotton was just having, I hear that from young officers all the time, that the rhetoric, the demonization of police officers has a real consequence. We're in the grips of nothing short of a war on police. According to FBI data, 73 police officers were feloniously killed in 2021, a nearly 60% increase from 2020. And sadly, this trend has continued throughout 2022. As of June 30th, 178 officers were shot in the line of duty, 33 of whom were killed. But it's not just these shocking numbers, it's the way these shootings have come about. These aren't solely officers shot while intervening in a robbery or investigating a domestic disturbance, but more and more, we're seeing an increase in ambush-style attacks, where the shooting or killing of an officer is not incidental to some other crime, but rather it's the primary objective. It's the primary purpose of the crime. In 2021, there were 133 officers shot in 107 separate ambush-style attacks. And this increase in violence is fueled by dangerous and irresponsible rhetoric, including, sadly, by a number of members of Congress, who, whenever there is an officer-involved shooting, immediately move to demonize the cop, immediately move to blame the police officer without knowing the facts, without knowing what happened. It's always the officer. The incredibly reckless push to abolish the police that is driven by the left wing of the Democratic Party, I believe, has done enormous damage. And President Biden nominated not one, but two of the leading advocates of abolishing the police to be senior officials at the U.S. Department of Justice, Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark. For both of them, they had repeatedly, explicitly, vigorously argued for defunding or abolishing the police. And every single Democratic senator voted to confirm both of them. So Democrat politicians in an election season say they don't support defunding the police, but when given a chance to decide, should one of the leading advocates of defunding the police be the number 3 person at the Department of Justice, 100% of Senate Democrats said, A-OK with me. Sergeant Penny, share for this committee what the effect of the rhetoric directed at police officers has been to the men and women in the field, to the men and women risking their lives to keep us safe.
It's been demoralizing for our officers in the field, the officers that's trying to work hard to keep us safe. We just got to go back to the July 7, 2016 shooting attack and look at how the rise of anti-police sentiment was being used to incite violence against police. That actually radicalized an individual to come into downtown Dallas to shoot multiple people and kill 5 police officers. And those of you that have never seen a shooting before, it's even worse to imagine the carnage that happened on that day. To see the officers coming into the hospital and being wheeled in over and over again, one after the other. And Senator, you were there. America needs to understand that these are real lives. Officers are people too. They're here to do a difficult job and they just want to go home to their families. But we cannot allow this irresponsible rhetoric that's being used to proliferate radical messages online to incite violence against police, because individuals are taking up arms and actually carrying out those attacks. So I encourage everyone, Senator, to be responsible, especially our leaders for this country, be responsible in what they're putting out online because it's endangering our lives. Thank you.
Well, Sergeant Petty, that is powerful, and I agree with you. You're right. I was at the funeral for the 5 police officers in Dallas. It was horrific. In that instance, the gunman told police negotiators, quote, he was upset about Black Lives Matter, and, quote, he was upset about the recent police shootings, and that he was upset at white people. The suspect stated he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. That vicious rhetoric, the false lies. We had a Biden judicial nominee testify, sitting at that table you're at, that police officers shoot unarmed black men in America every single week. It's a flat-out lie. It's completely false, and yet the Senate Judiciary Committee was the vehicle for spreading that lie. It's harmful. It's harmful when politicians throw gas on the fire, and it's particularly harmful when the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, bails out of jail violent Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters siding with the criminals instead of the cops. Sheriff Bouchard, what does that do to the men and women of blue that are keeping us safe?
Well, thank you, Senator. You know, in many ways, as was said, it demoralizes when you see people that have attacked police or have heard police get out on little or no bail. And I have often likened it to the similarity when our Vietnam vets came home, they were spit on and they were demonized, and they were men and women that were going to do a tough job that they were asked to do and then demonized for doing it. I think we pledged as a society we're not going to let that happen to our veterans again. Amen. So happy that happened. We're in the same place right now with police, and we're letting history repeat itself. We're letting good men and women that are out there doing a tough job get demonized and demoralized.
Thank you.